welcome back to our channel. Let's have a look at another PSLE question, and this time we have a line graph. So the graph shows the temperature of water in a pot from 9 to 9:30. So let us first have a look at this graph. So over here we have what we refer to as a line graph. And what does the horizontal axis of this line graph tell us? All these numbers over here are the time. And you can notice that they are split apart by 5-minute interval. And what about the vertical axis? The vertical axis are the temperature of water. So now, understood this graph, then only move into the questions. So the first question, for how many minutes was the temperature of the water 50 degrees Celsius and below? Then we first have to find out where is this 50 degrees Celsius. It is this point over here. So what we can do to make it clearer is that I can draw a line across this graph so that I know for those points that above this line are the time where it is below 50, and those points that below this line are those time that is below 50. So what are the time? Very good. We can have 09, 10 to 09, 30, which gives us 20 minutes. So that's off the first problem, quick and easy. How about the second one? Well, for the second one, during which two 5-minute intervals did the temperature of water decreases at the same rate? Well, this is a bit tricky because in order to know the rate, what is the formula of calculating rate? Let me write it down. So in order to calculate rate, then what we can do is that I can take the changes, and in this case, the changes of temperature divided by time. However, for these questions, is it necessary for me to calculate this rate for each interval and then only I compare? No. Why? Because in the numerator, the time are always going to be 5 minutes because they're all separated apart by 5 minutes. So because the time is always the same in this case, so I don't have to worry about it. Then what about the numerator, the changes? Well, do I have to take this value, subtract this value, so that only I know the changes for this interval? And then I perform this operation for all 6 intervals. Well, you could do that, but a bit tedious, isn't it? So what can we do? Well, over here we can see that in the vertical direction, all the intervals are the same. So if I were to calculate the changes, I would simply take each interval, an interval multiplied by how many intervals are there. And since they're all the same, do I have to do this tedious calculation? No, I can simply count how many intervals are there. Because if they have the same number of intervals, then they must be the same changes. So let's see. Oops, let me get my pen. So for the first interval, for the first time interval, the decrease in temperature is 4 intervals in the temperature. How about the second period? Well, in this case, it is 5. In this case, it is 3. Over here, that is 4. Over here, that is 1. And then finally, it's 0. So which two time interval has the same decrease in temperature? Very simple. The first one, which is 0900 to 0905 and 0915 to 0920. So that's off the second question. Now moving on to the third. Now what was the change in temperature per minute from 0925 to 0930? 925 to 930, which is this part over here. Well, what's the answer? This one should be quite straightforward. We can see that is there any changes in the temperature? We started off at this point, and then we ended up in this point, and then throughout this process, oops, sorry, let me erase this line. Throughout this process, they're all the same. Never changes. So what is the answer? That is simply going to be 0 per minute. Because it's a flat, straight line, we know that there is absolutely no changes. That's why it is 0. So that's solved the third part. So for these questions, the main takeaway is how we understand a line graph. And in most cases, a line graph tells us about the changes. And if there's a straight line in the line graph, that means for this time interval, there is absolutely no changes. And if you have the same time interval, then when you are looking at the rate, then you don't have to do the tedious calculation. You simply need to look at how does it decrease in the vertical direction. So that's it for today. If you'd like to learn more about our PSLE class, join our study group, and you can also book a free PSLE diagnostic test with our teacher. I'm Teacher Cedric, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.